All right, we're going to start over. We're going to call the Public Service Committee meeting to order here Tuesday, April 14th, 2015. Review and approval of the minutes dated March 10th, 2015.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Today I have asked Jessica to come, the sustainability coordinator, to give an overview of home and business recycling requirements. So Jessica, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and this is, like I had discussed with you, more for informational purposes, and we can have a conversation afterwards. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. My name is Jessica Lanchin, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Sioux Falls. I appreciate you having me here to talk a little bit about our existing recycling programs and the requirements for recycling here with our Sioux Falls Regional Sanitary Landfill. This is my first time speaking in front of council, but I do want to give a preview. I will be here again next month to talk about some proposed plumbing rebate changes with our water coordinator, Darren Freeze, and then to also go over my top 10 sustainability initiatives for 2015. So thank you again for having me. Just give a brief overview of my presentation today. I am going to talk a little bit about the residential recycling requirements, our public education efforts, apartment recycling requirements, non-residential recycling requirements, some potential outcomes, and also some potential solutions. I do want to leave room at the end. I look forward to your input and any questions that you may have for me. So a brief overview of residential recycling requirements. There are several ordinances that mandate residential recycling. It does specifically say that required recyclables must be separated from the waste stream, and that residential sites must use single stream recycling methodology for the collection of recyclables. The ordinance defines required recyclables as office paper, corrugated cardboard and chipboard, plastics 1 and 2, metal containers, newspaper, electronics, magazines, and bulk rate mail. These are not only required recyclables, but they're also banned from the landfill per Ordinance 57.050. So the ordinance specifically says that residential recycling must be single-stream recycling. It does also mandate that recyclables are picked up twice a month and that the required recyclables not be deposited into the sanitary landfill. In addition, 57.032 allows garbage haulers to not accept any solid waste containing visible required recyclables as long as they educate their customers on why they didn't pick up the solid waste. This applies to residents and businesses. I do want to go over our public education efforts. As sustainability coordinator, one of my main duties is public education, and a lot of our messaging that we send out to the public is focused on recycling education, and a lot of our messages have really applied to residential single-stream recycling education. So just to highlight a few of the things that we have done, especially as of recently, we've made significant investments in TV, radio, social media, bus advertisement, newspaper articles, and events. I average about 2 events a month, and I usually am talking about recycling along with another topic at these events. This year was the 4th year that we brought a show called The Magic of Recycling to elementary school kids in the area. It was the first year that we made a concerted effort to offer the show to schools outside of Sioux Falls. So we went to Worthing Elementary, Howard Elementary, Marion Elementary, McCook. 9 out of the 12 schools that we went to were outside of Sioux Falls city limits. I received a wonderful email after we offered this program from the Marion Elementary principal, thanking me for educating their students about recycling, and also just thanking me for the opportunity to bring the program to their school. They have a limited budget, and so they're not able to do something like this very often. So that was a very nice email. The Magic of Recycling is an interactive magic show, and we did make an informational video. You can view it at siouxfalls.org/screen. It's pretty cute to see the kids in action. The magician brings the kids up, and they act out a play on what it would be like if your community didn't have recycling. And he also talks about reducing the amount of waste that you generate, reusing what you can, and a little bit about the process of recycling. So this is something that we've now built into our 2016 budget, and we plan to continue to offer this each year. We're also we're developing some waste minimization core curriculum education kits, which is a mouthful. We'll have to come up with a better name for that. But basically, I don't know if you've ever noticed these at the outdoor campus, but they have these kits that you can check out, and they meet core curriculum standards, and they're hands-on education. We're working with the same educator who developed those kits for the outdoor campus to create some kits for the City of Sioux Falls to use that will highlight waste minimization and recycling, but will also meet core curriculum standards. It'll offer hands-on learning. As sustainability coordinator, my biggest limiting resource is my time. So I'd love to go out to every classroom, but unfortunately it takes a lot of time to develop individual lesson plans for each teacher and to go out to all the classrooms. So these kits will allow the teachers to check them out from 1 to 2 weeks for free and use them as they see fit with their curriculum. And they will educate about recycling and waste minimization. The plan right now is to also offer those first to the outlying communities, some of the rural customers of the landfill, and then to bring them to Sioux Falls. We're also focusing our recycling education this year, not just on that residents should recycle, but how to recycle correctly. Contamination with single-stream recycling is a huge issue. So we have a commercial, a PSA going on right now called the Do's and Don'ts of Recycling. So not only what belongs in your recycling bin and what you should recycle, but what you shouldn't as well. So things like toys and needles and food. That's playing on HGTV, Discovery, TLC, and CityLink. We also recently wrote an article called How to Recycle in Sioux Falls for the Argus Leader. This talks about single-stream recycling and then also some of the other avenues for some of the specialty waste, so our home healthcare needle disposal program, the household hazardous waste facility, and then a highlight of Route 1 at the sanitary landfill. We recently, I worked with the Special Events Planning Committee, and I'm also on the board for the Ecomaniacs. So this year we tried to make an effort to encourage event vendors to recycle. A lot of these vendors come from places that are not, Sioux Falls, so they don't know that recycling is required in Sioux Falls. So we created these flyers telling them some of the specialty waste that we see at events, how to recycle them, and then what does not belong in the recycling bin. And so I go to all the meetings where there's going to be a lot of vendors for event coordinators and make sure that they have this guide. So some of the outcomes of our public education efforts, as you can see, our recycling progress has gone up each year. When we began measuring the waste hauler recycling progress in 2008, we had a recycling rate of about 12%. This last year, we had a recycling goal of 21.8% for 2014. We exceeded that by 1.7%, and we were at 23.5% for waste hauler recycling rate. We have a goal of 25% by 2017. We're also seeing our single-stream recyclables go up each year. In 2013, we had about 35,000 tons, and in 2014, we had about almost 38,000 tons, which is a difference of about 5 million pounds of single-stream recyclables. So each year, that number is going up. We're also seeing our municipal solid waste pounds per person per day go down. In 2008, we were at 4 pounds per person per day of municipal solid waste. In 2014, we were down to 3.2 pounds municipal solid waste per person per day. In Tracy's presentation, he mentioned that Sioux Falls is growing by 3,000 to 4,000 people each year. So even as our population's growing, our recyclables are increasing and our waste per capita is decreasing. I think this shows that our public education efforts are really paying off. So I was asked to talk a little bit about recycling requirements for rental units. Managers and owners of apartments and rental units are required to offer single-stream recycling for their tenants. They need to facilitate recycling, make it convenient for their tenants, and they also must educate their tenants about what their recycling program is as they move in and then each year after that. We have made an effort recently to work closely with the South Dakota Multi-Housing Association. I'm the chair for the Solid Waste Planning Board, and we have to have a representative from the Solid Waste Planning, or from the South Dakota Multi-Housing Association, and our representative is Merle Woolman. He got me in contact with the South Dakota Multi-Housing Association, and last month, in March, at their monthly meeting, I presented about recycling, specifically for multi-housing units, how to encourage your tenants to recycle, and how to establish a recycling program. Recycling at these types of facilities is quite a bit different than your residential home recycling. Usually the layouts of the buildings are different, or they were designed before recycling and was required by the city. So, working with each individual owner will definitely help increase their recycling rate. I'm also presenting on Thursday about recycling to the South Dakota Multi-Housing Association. And then one of the things that the SD Multi-Housing Association mentioned that they were looking for is they have a large number of tenants who don't speak English as their first language. So they asked about coming up with a way to label their recycling bins that were not just a list of things that they accept. So we're developing these stickers, as you can see there, with the blue, which is what we are using for our recycling color, and then photos of things that belong in the recycling bin. The response so far has been great. We'll just need to work with each building's waste hauler and make sure it's okay that we put the stickers on the bins, but the ones that I've talked to so far are excited about it. So then now we'll get into non-residential recycling. This includes businesses, government facilities, entertainment facilities, and schools. They are required to recycle and separate out from their waste stream the required recyclables that I mentioned earlier. They also must require recycling to be picked up at a minimum of twice per month. And the materials are banned from the landfill, not just for the residential side, but also for the business side as well. 57.030A for the residential recycling states that residential recycling must be single stream methodology. 57.030B states that non-residential sites may use either single stream, dual stream, or source separated for the collection of and management of their recyclables. A lot of businesses that I've surveyed recently will have a dumpster for garbage and then a dumpster for cardboard only. Looking at the ordinance, it does say that they are allowed to have dual stream or source separated. However, the required recyclables are banned from the landfill. So even if they do have a cardboard roll-off, that's allowed, but they also need to be separating out required recyclables as well. And the collection of recyclable materials from businesses and industries are provided by different private haulers licensed by the city, which is unique from other cities. Other cities have the city provide waste and recycling collection service. We allow the private licensed waste haulers to provide that service for our customers at the landfill. So they are allowed to pick whoever they'd like for their hauler service, but this is. And you can see here how we regulate the recycling rate here in Sioux Falls is with the individual waste haulers. There's a recycling goal each year, and the haulers are required to meet 80% of that recycling goal. If they don't meet 80% of that recycling goal, they are subject to surcharge. If they exceed that goal by 50%, then they are entitled to a rebate. So we put this up each quarter and then each year, so you can measure, see where your waste hauler is. The city's role really is an educator for the public about recycling, and then it's also a resource for haulers to help educate their customers. But the haulers are our connection between individual residences and businesses. I do want to highlight the last week I've been really trying to look for some businesses that are meeting the ordinance requirements for non-residential recycling. And here are some that I noticed. Come and Go in Russell, Minnesota is one of the only gas stations, maybe the only gas station in Sioux Falls that has single stream recycling at the pumps. That's a big investment for a facility like that to make, and it's great that they're going above and beyond doing that. Culver's also offers recycling. They may be the only fast food establishment in Sioux Falls that offers recycling. Falls Overlook Cafe, the Phillips Avenue Diner, that picture up top is of the Phillips Avenue Diner. I stopped in there today and they didn't mind me taking a picture. They just said that they, as they train new staff, they hit on about what's recyclable and how it's important to recycle. Foley's, Minerva's, Borrowed Bucks, and TC Referee also offer single stream recycling to their customers. Most of the other ones that I surveyed had cardboard only. So we do calculate the waste hauler recycling rate, and we do measure our success with the waste hauler recycling rate, but we also calculate each year the regional recycling rate. So each year as I'm compiling the annual reports for the haulers, we send out a letter to businesses that we suspect may be backhauling and doing their own recycling on their own, not through their hauler, and we request them to send their information to us about their recycling processes. So with this regional recycling rate, we only consider materials and processes that the EPA considers to be recycling. So your concrete and asphalt recycling would not be considered towards our regional recycling rate because the EPA considers that to be reuse. Any other process like thrift stores or food donations would not be considered in a regional recycling rate. This is specifically materials and processes that the EPA says is recycling. But a lot of large retailers and businesses, like your grocery stores or your big box stores, that generate a significant quantity of recyclable materials like cardboard or plastic wrap will manage it in-house, and then they'll backhaul it to a warehouse or directly to an end user, because they can usually make a profit on it. So we did get quite a bit of information for 2014. We were able to calculate our regional recycling rate to be somewhere around 48%, which is significantly higher than the waste hauler recycling rate of 23.5. I just want to highlight a few of the larger numbers where we get this number, and this includes individual contributions to the recycling stream, so that would include our household hazardous waste facility. We recycled almost 1.9 million pounds of material that the EPA deems as recyclable in 2014. That includes electronics and hazardous material. Scrap metal recyclers processed 134 million pounds. Tire recyclers processed 6 million pounds. And then individual businesses baled and backhauled 31 million pounds of cardboard and plastic on their own. Haulers do have a right to claim this from a company. If they are their waste hauler and recycler, they have a right to claim this information from their customers, so we could calculate it into the waste hauler recycling rate. The issue that a lot of the haulers are having is that they see this information as proprietary, the businesses do, and they don't want to provide it for fear that it would get out to their competitors. So we're working on a system where the businesses can send that information to me, and so it will remain confidential, but I can still count it on their monthly recycling rate. So there is more recycling going on than what our waste hauler recycling rate looks at. That's just a tiny fraction of what's really happening here in Sioux Falls. So that's why we do the regional recycling rate, to get a broader idea. Right now, we can't presently differentiate between residential or commercial recycling. Waste haulers oftentimes will have only residential customers, but a lot of times they'll also have a mixture between residential and commercial. So the only thing we can regulate is the amount of material they send to a material recycling facility and the amount of material they send to the landfill. We don't know what amount of that material is commercial or residential. So it's hard right now to say exactly how much space we would save in the landfill if we were to enforce non-residential recycling, single-stream recycling. But it's something that we can maybe come up with an estimate for you. So this slide is really to take a look at the broader picture. Sustainability isn't just about the environment, it's also about economics and society. So I really want to show you all sides of this argument before we talk about any potential solutions. So I am a proponent of recycling, and I'd love to see more recycling here in Sioux Falls. But here's some of the possible outcomes if we were to strictly mandate all non-residential businesses to recycle. So obviously we'd see an increase in our waste hauler recycling rate and a decrease in the amount of material that we have to bury in the Sioux Falls Regional Sanitary Landfill. Specifically the required recyclables that we are banning from the landfill, we would see a decrease in the amount of that material. Businesses may also have a potential decrease in their waste disposal costs. 57.078 mandates pay-as-you-throw rates for waste haulers to offer to their customers. As far as I know, there are no other incentives for businesses to offer, for haulers to offer single-stream recycling to businesses. And that may be something that we talk about with our potential solutions. They may also see a potential increase in customer base. I was working with one of the larger gas stations here in Sioux Falls, and they were interested in offering single-stream recycling at the pumps, specifically because a lot of their customers were demanding it. I think we've done a really great job with our public education efforts, and residents really understand the value of recycling, and they want their community that they live in to reflect the values that they have themselves. So if they see recycling as important, they want their businesses and their community to also see it as important. So there is a demand out there, and I do feel that it's strong enough that it would be a competitive edge for a business to offer recycling to their customers versus the same business that doesn't. They would also potentially see an increase in their waste disposal costs for businesses. So the reason that most businesses that I can tell have a single-stream a dumpster for cardboard recycling and a dumpster for garbage recycling and not one for single-stream recycling is there is an increase in cost for a single-stream recycling dumpster versus a cardboard-only dumpster. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, and I'll get into that. But just to give you an idea, here's some cost estimates for a business. 1 time a week pickup would see an increase in about $15 a month in their waste hauler bill. 2 times a week pickup, $35 a month increase. 3 times a week pickup, $60 a month increase. So the average restaurant would see an annual increase in about $720 a year in their waste disposal costs. The gas station that I was working with, we took a look. I think they had 2 times a week pickup, and their annual waste bill would go up about $4,800 because they had 10 stores in town. There also could be a potential increase in their waste disposal costs from contamination fees. This picture is a photo from a single stream that came in from one of the park locations here in town. As you can see, there's a lot of cardboard and a lot of paper and a lot of plastic, but in the left-hand corner there is some styrofoam. And the hauler actually got charged a contamination fee for that styrofoam being in that stream. So a lot of times the haulers will just take those contamination fees as part of their business costs, but if they are able to determine that it is coming from the business, they may pass those contamination fees down to their customers. And I'll give you an example of that here in a little bit. But there are contamination fees, and they do push up disposal costs, and that is part of the reason that there's an increase when you go from cardboard only to single stream recycling. So I do have some proposed next steps that we could take a look at, and I'd love to discuss these with you. Right now, like I said, next month I'll be talking about my top 10 sustainability initiatives. One of them is to initiate these internal recycling audits. When I do a recycling audit on a city facility, I'm looking at standardization, coverage, and location. So standardization, we feel that there's a lot of power in having the blue recycling and black trash. That way, no matter how you turn the bin, you know what it is just by looking at it and what belongs in that bin. So we want all of the bins to be the same. As you can see, that picture on the right is from Carnegie, and that bin is labeled for recycling, but I see a bin over here that's the same color, but it's next to a blue bin, so I'm assuming it's trash. So it can be confusing for people who use the facility. So we look for the standardization. That's our best form of education. The coverage, we want to see a 1-to-1 ratio. Wherever there's garbage, there should also be recycling, just to make it that much easier for people to use, unless it doesn't make sense somewhere like a bathroom. And then we want our locations to be highly visible and very convenient for people to use, so they don't even have to think about it. The recycling's right there. So that's what I look for in these internal recycling audits. We've had some great successes so far with these. In 2013, we did recycling audits of the Sioux Falls park system and noticed some issues. In the top right-hand corner, you see these are what we had before in our park system. So there's a green bin and a blue bin. I believe the green bin was for garbage and the blue bin was for recyclables, but most people associate green with recycling, so it was confusing for people who use the park system to recycle. We were awarded a $10,000 grant from the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources to standardize all of the containers to blue and black, label the recycling containers, and then also add lids to the trash and recycling containers, which is important because if moisture gets into the recycling containers, that can contaminate those materials, and they may not be recyclable anymore. So that grant helped out a lot with that. Part of the reason that we did get that grant too is we were reusing 55-gallon barrels. So a lot of times we won't get a grant for brand new containers, but since we were reusing these, SDDE&R really liked that. So that's one of our successes that we've had so far. One of my favorite projects that I've worked on was collaborating with the SMG, Ovations, Millennium, and Novak to improve the event center recycling rate. We were able to calculate the event center recycling rate because they can weigh it right there on site. After the Jason Aldean concert, which was one of the first big events, there was a recycling rate we calculated of 20%. There's not a lot of data out there about event centers recycling rates who don't offer organics recycling. The event centers that have organics recycling usually have recycling rates of about 90% because they're able to recycle all of the paper, all of the food waste, everything, and then as well as the single-stream recyclable materials. So I couldn't find a good comparison of another event center that didn't have organics recycling but was really focusing on recycling. But we knew we could do better because our goal is 23.5% and 20% is below that, so we knew we could do better. We sat down with staff from all these different organizations. We all had a common goal to increase the recycling rate, and we determined, if you look at the waste stream up top, this is the food containers that are offered at the event center. So 4 out of 5 of these are not recyclable because they could get contaminated or the material's just not something that they can make a profit on. So the clear plastic cup originally was not considered recyclable, but because we get such large volumes, we were able to work with Millennium Recycling, and they are able to capture those and recycle those now, which was confusing for users of the event center because there's a green leaf on those because they're compostable, but we don't have that here in Sioux Falls, so people thought that they were recyclable, but they are now. So with that and with training the staff on what's recyclable, because a lot of times the staff will do the cleanup after these events, we're able to increase the recycling rate by 24%. So that's huge. We're almost at 50% of the waste at the event center is being recycled. We've also performed recycling audits at the Sioux Falls Police Department, City Hall, Carnegie Town Hall, the Orpheum, the Pavilion, as well as Community Health. So I did do a recycling audit here, and there are some things that we need to work on, but I'll be working with the maintenance staff on that. So besides focusing internally, because I do think it's really important that before we go out to businesses and tell them what they need to be doing, we should be walking the walk. But some of the other next steps that we could easily take, we could enforce 57.050B, which allows us to inspect loads for deposit at the landfill for excluded materials. And I did speak with landfill staff before I came here, and they are willing to do this. So they can take a look at a hauler's load. If there are a lot of plastic bottles or glass bottles or things that could be recyclable, they can find out where that hauler had a pickup at, and if it is at a business, then maybe we can work with them that way. So they are allowed to inspect those loads, and they can. I believe that they can deny them from depositing that into the landfill. We could also send out warning letters based on inspections or complaints from patrons or haulers. So if a customer goes to Jessica's burrito shop and wants to be able to recycle their pop can and can't, and they call me, then maybe we could work with them that way. That's another possible solution. Or if a hauler has a really difficult customer, a business that just refuses to recycle, then we can work with them that way too, with a warning letter. We could also determine which industries we get the most bang for our buck, basically. So which industries are contributing the most required recyclables to our waste stream? Is it hotels? Is it restaurants? Is it, like the airport, or, we could take a look, where will we get the most material that we can recycle from, and then focus that way, and then kind of move down the line. So we could do it that way. Another thing that I think maybe work best, especially since there really isn't a reward for businesses who are really, making the extra effort to recycle, aside from possible decrease in their waste hauler bill, is maybe a recognition program for businesses who do recycle, similar to This Event Recycles. Maybe we could do a This Business Recycles. And in order to get that kind of recognition, they would have to first do a recycling audit. They'd maybe have to have their maintenance staff undergo recycling education training. They'd have to work with us so we could take a look at their waste stream and determine any opportunities for material that could be recycled that isn't. Maybe we would require the standardization in the 1-to-1 ratio and the coverage like we are for city facilities. So those are some possible solutions. So in conclusion, our public education efforts have really paid off. And like I said, residents value and understand the value and the importance in recycling. We just now need to translate that into the business community as well. Because residents understand it and they are demanding it from our community. And we need to make sure that we bring businesses to code. We will continue to mandate licensed waste haulers to meet the annual recycling standard. But even though there are several individual businesses that are making the concerted effort to abide by our city ordinance recycling requirements, there are definitely other opportunities for us to expand our recycling program. So at this point, I'd appreciate if you have any questions or any input, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions from the council? Councilor Erpenbach?
Thanks, Jessica. This is great stuff. I appreciate you coming, and I know that you're talking about bringing your top 10 down the road. That's great. And my questions might be pertaining to that, but the thing that I hear most from my green nerdy friends is plastic grocery sacks. Mm-hmm. And there are cities, forward-thinking cities in the United States that have banned plastic grocery sacks. Right. That is something that we would be capable of doing. Is it something you've thought about doing? And do you want to talk about that a little bit? What would that mean?
Sure, I can absolutely talk about that. So I've got some friends that work in Sioux City in a similar position as me, and we met this fall at a conference, and Sioux City at the time City Council had voted to ban plastic bags from Sioux City. And this was because several cattle surrounding Sioux City had eaten the plastic bags because they were litter, and they passed away, and that's a lot of money when you lose that many cattle. So that was the reason that they were looking at it. Since then, they've, even though City Council voted to ban plastic bags, they've decided to go away from that. Mm. If we were to do something like that, we'd have to make sure that we've got enough other solutions for consumers And we'd have to work closely with the businesses. It wouldn't be a speedy process, but it is something that we could take a look at. Right now, we're focusing our recycling education on how to recycle plastic bags. So for America Recycles Day, we had a booth at Hy-Vee, and we're just teaching people that you should bag all of the bags together, tie them together, and then put them in your recycling bin to make sure that they get recycled. We haven't looked too far into banning plastic bags, but I do get asked the question, and I think someday we'll have to come up with, some sort of plan for that.
Well, and I'm glad that you say that. Number one, put them all in one bag and tie up the bag and put it into your recycling bin. That is how you best recycle them.
Right.
They certainly can be made into other things and all those, there's lots of options for what to do with plastic bags. Get on Pinterest and you'll find them. Yeah. But I also want the public to hear that that's not a proposal right now. We're not talking specifically about banning plastic bags in Sioux Falls, but I think it is, as you just said, something we need to think about. If we're going forward and we're growing, and we just heard earlier a report that we're going to have 200,000 people in this town in the next 10 years, we're going to have to do something about that issue that's growing with the numbers of people. The other then question that I get occasionally is about to-go boxes in restaurants. You talked a lot about restaurant recycling. Mm-hmm. That would be another one that maybe we could add to our ordinance in the future. Is that something you've thought about when you talk about that?
It is. In 2014, I came up with a green resolution, and I encourage everybody else to have a green resolution, and mine was to no longer accept to-go bags or boxes from restaurants, because while styrofoam is recyclable in other communities, it's not here with our material recycling facilities. So people will argue with me, well, it's got the symbol on it, but it's not recyclable here. And the fact is that type of material will never biodegrade in our landfill. So styrofoam is another issue similar to the plastic bags. It's a material that we really need to take a look at, find out if maybe there's an affordable solution for businesses to use that is recyclable. But a lot of them do use the styrofoam containers.
If I might, one more, Madam Chair. This is confessions time. I'm looking at the things that can be recycled in various locations, and I'm not seeing vacuum cleaners, which I broke mine this weekend, and I put it in the garbage can today, and it went out with the garbage, I hope. Is that okay? It's a vacuum cleaner, literally a plug-in vacuum cleaner.
We don't accept them at the household hazardous waste facility. Just Bargain Bites recycle vacuum cleaners. So there is an electronics recycling facility in town that will recycle them, but we don't accept them at the household hazardous waste facility. So unless you take it to an electronics recycling facility, it would end up in the landfill. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my vacuum cleaner went to the landfill today. I'm really sorry. Thank you. I'm sure there is a fine for that. Thank you, Councilor Rolfe.
Councilor Kiley, did you?
Yes, thank you very much. I commend you on the development of the curriculum kits that can be used within the schools, because we know that if you tap into the teachers, and I'm not just talking about the schools recycling themselves, but the teachers, the science teachers, for instance, making it a part of their curriculum, because then each child, especially at that grade school level, will take that information home to their parents, and so it acts like a hub and it just branches out from there, and we make an awful lot of contacts in that way. So I commend you for the development of the curriculum kits, and I encourage you to continue to use those as much as possible, especially considering that a week from tomorrow is Earth Day, April 22nd. Yes. And so a lot of them will be concentrating on Earth Day activities at that particular point in time. As far as the proposed next steps, one of the steps you've already taken, boy, you've increased your recycling rate from 20% to 44% at the Sanford Premier Center and other operations managed by SMG Innovations. I commend you for that. And the easier we make it for people to recycle, the more they're going to. And obviously that means they have to recognize the recycling bins. And we can make them very attractive too. They do not just have to be barrels. Right. There are a lot of, I've been to many other convention centers around the country. Thanks. And they are very attractive as well as available too. The determining, under the proposed next steps, determining which businesses may be contributing the most required recyclables to the waste stream, develop a corrective action plan. I mean, that's I mean, that's really a must, because basically what those individuals or those businesses are penalizing the haulers,
Right.
because now the haulers have to make up the difference elsewhere. And so you wonder what is the real incentive of even taking on that account. You know, maybe if they get dropped enough times that it'll drive the point home, but I don't know if that's happening or not.
They do. I hear from waste haulers a lot of, they're very concerned about their recycling rate, and they will drop a customer if they're not recycling properly.
You know, the bars and restaurant industries, especially with the amount of glass and plastic and aluminum that they go through on a daily basis, there's no reason why that shouldn't be easily separated on the staff, on the part of the staff.
Right.
So anything that we can do to encourage in that particular area, and maybe you could develop some kind of a mentorship in connecting the businesses that are doing a good job with the ones that aren't, and just have them demonstrate how easy it is to do, to encourage that it gets spread throughout the industry. And then I guess basically that's kind of outlined in your conclusion there as well too. So good job. We still have a ways to go. You know, I think we can do a much better job than we are, but at least we're on the upward trend.
There are lots of opportunities.
Yes, there are.
Councilor Stagers?
Can you tell us how many garbage haulers we now have in Sioux Falls? And also, isn't there a part of the code that says if garbage haulers do not comply, they can lose their license?
Sure. So, there are 23 haulers in Sioux Falls, licensed haulers. So there's a lot, and that's down from I think there were 35 in 2008. So we have lost a few haulers. We've never taken away a license for recycling, but we do have within the ordinance, the first year if they don't meet the recycling standard, they have to submit a corrective action plan, and they're surcharged $1 per ton hauled to the landfill. The second year, if they don't meet it again, they're charged $2 per ton MSW hauled to the landfill the previous year. And the third year, if they don't meet it, they'll get their license revoked.
Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. With the potential outcome area, when you're talking about the potential increase of dollars of $720 up in cost for a business, we all know that gets passed on to the customer. Your prices go up, et cetera. It's the cost of doing business. So my question is more along the lines of, isn't this a cost savings for our community if we are recycling? So why would we increase the rate if we're saving substantial amount of landfill space when, if a bar is not, we'll just say a bar A is not recycling and they start to recycle, we're saving tons of space in a potential landfill section. So the cost going up is, I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So it definitely benefits the taxpayers the more the businesses recycle, and if they recycle all that they can, because saving space in the landfill is, that's why we have recycling. So it definitely benefits the taxpayers. The haulers are the ones that determine the increase in rate from cardboard only to single stream. And part of that reason is they're able to sell the cardboard back to the material recycling facility, so they make a profit on that. With the single stream recyclables, they don't make a profit on it, and they also don't get charged. It's just kind of I believe it's nothing, but they don't make a profit like they do with cardboard. So to make up for that loss in revenue, they'll increase their prices, and also to make up for the contamination fees. So the haulers are the ones that determine those rates. We're able to have them decrease their rates for the amount of waste that they don't send to the landfill. But as far as recycling, it's a market-driven decision.
Right. And I understand that, and so it seems like it's very hauler-based. The burdens fall on the hauler. But in the end, if we're saving the taxpayer dollars by saving space in the landfill, it just seems if we could somehow kind of look at that maybe a little closer. and I need to think through it more, but it's troubling to me when those costs go up so much, and it's such a good thing and a great benefit for our community to be recycling in a way like that. My other question that I had was in regards to, do we have a sustainability plan in place, or is there anything? I'm fairly new to the council, and so just question if we have anything like that, what it looks like, how long ago was it, is that something that we need to review again, or so on?
So there's a sustainability master plan, and it was published in 2012, but I think most of the information that they used to put together the sustainability master plan was done in 2008, so it has been a while. There's been 2 other sustainability coordinators in my position, so staff turnovers really set us back on where we are with the plan. But since we're looking at the budget for 2017, I've been tasked to do like a 5-year look back on the sustainability master plan, take a look at where we are with meeting our goals, and where we can improve on, where we need to catch up. The presentation that I'll give next month about my top 10 sustainability initiatives, each one of them meets at least one, if not more, of the sustainability master plan goals or works towards them. So it is a guiding document that I do use, but a lot of my initiatives are based on what the community's needs are at the time. So that's where most of my projects come from.
Perfect. And I would just, for me personally, I would encourage maybe that we as a city look at that again. I mean, it's been a while, published in 2008 or 9, a lot changes, and as we are continually bringing people into our community, how can we serve them better? How can we save dollars by making an impact to our community at the same time and going green, if you will? So thank you for your time. I don't know if anybody has any questions or if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak about this potential. Councilor Karski.
Surprise. No comment specifically on recycling. Great presentation, thank you. Just kind of a captive audience right now with our garbage haulers going out to the landfill. Tarp your loads. I know that there's been a problem where a lot of them aren't being tarped, and the city police department has started issuing citations, issued one just yesterday. It's a $120 citation to a garbage hauler for not having your load tarped as you're driving through town or out of town. 41st Street, 12th Street, it's looking awful. It's just terrible. It's been windy. We got garbage blowing all over. Just a message to the garbage haulers, tarp those loads. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
I would just like to add to that and tarp it properly. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen trucks going down and the tarp is flying up at a 45-degree angle and serving absolutely no purpose. Or individuals that pull over a few, maybe a mile out, and then throw on some rickety little tarp once they get there. So again, let's do it properly. Thank you.
And thanks for your presentation. I hope that we can partner together as you move forward with potential initiatives and looking at how we can recycle more as a community. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. We will move to any open discussion. Any open discussion, anything anybody wants to bring up? Have a meeting, anything? All right.
Move
we
to
will
adjourn?
adjourn this meeting.